Yo.
We're here! Okay, shh, we're recording now.
That's the point. We're in the studio.
I know, you're having
I'm
fun
trying
with your mic.
to drop some beats.
Well, I was talking to this videographer that wants to do a video of me. Shout out Dylan Harris. He did the finisher, which was about Coquillona 250, and he was telling me that he will like break down in random raps sometimes, and I told him, I was like, oh my god, Carson beatboxes. You guys have to meet.
Yeah, we gotta drop a mixtape.
I know.
Drop an EP.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I spent this whole, 3-hour run talking about you, and at the end, I feel like I was setting you guys up, because I feel like you would get along.
That's cool. Yeah, we both do video work, and
he raps, you beatbox.
we both
You kind of rap, too, sometimes.
both drop awesome hits. Impromptu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, how's Texas?
Oh man, doing the Texas thing, wearing my cowboy boots right now. You know
Nice.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's Hawaii? You just got back home.
It's good. It's really good to be home. I went on a little trail run with Shirley this morning. I finally got the rocker in my size, so I got to test it out this morning, which was so awesome. The reason that I didn't wear the rocker for Madeira was that they were too big, but oh my gosh, you know how we were talking about at Madeira, those really steep downhills?
Oh yeah.
Your toes jam into the front of the shoe. That was happening to me. I wore the La Sportiva Prodigio Pros, which were great, but on those super steep road downhills, my toes were jamming. And with the Satisfy shoe, because it has kind of an arch, I don't think it would do that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you got to
right?
try it on some super steep trails. But let's back up for the listeners. We were just over on Madeira Island, Portugal.
Yeah,
And
the
Kat
plan was
ran.
to record there, but we went and got dinner instead.
Yeah, and Kat, tell them about the race that you ran. Which race was it?
I ran Madeira Island Ultra Trail, or the MIUT 85K, and it was crazy. That's been on my radar, not just during this training block, but for a super long time. But I've been pretty focused on it. Yeah, and I'm stoked. I literally have been thinking about this race every day for 6 months. So,
Yeah, and you did great.
Yeah.
It was so steep. So for any of you who have never heard of Madeira or never been there, it's an island pretty much similar size as, the island that we live on in Hawaii, but it's all super steep hills or cliff. There's no
there's
flat
not
land there.
any flat. The only flat on the course is terraced into the side of the mountain. And it's in the last 10K, and I couldn't run it that well because I was puking.
Yeah, you were puking towards the last 10K. That sounded rough.
Yeah. But the race was awesome. I still haven't stopped thinking about it. In the 5 nights after the race, I literally was having dreams about specifically that last 10K, because I was stumbling there and I really wanted to run it well. But
Wow. What a vision quest you went on, this 85K, which is what, 55 miles or so?
It was 56 miles total.
56 miles and 17,000 feet of vertical gain, which is so steep. That is what, I think that's steeper than the UTMB course profile, mile for mile.
Yeah, I think so. It's not
Just
as
a little
steep
bit.
as I did Eiger. I mean, it's all steep. It all has big climbs. I did Eiger Ultra Trail, but I guess that was 10 more miles and had 21,000 feet. So, I mean, it was extreme. It was extreme terrain for sure.
Yeah, so that is wild. And, it's on these trails that are like embedded into the cliff. So all the terrain there is steep. It's not like you have big flat like hillsides to run up. It's like jungle, steep terrain, and you're either running like straight up the hill or diagonally to the hill. But in any case, it's super steep. So like the trails that these Portuguese people build into the side of these mountains are like absolutely incredible. I can't believe the engineering that it goes into these trails because they build them out of stone, and everywhere you go there's these rock walls that I could just imagine took years and years and years to build each
Yeah.
individual one. And there's rock walls and stone walkways and stone and rock everything on the entire island. I have no idea how they did it all, but
Well,
there's some really good workers there.
yeah. I mean, the whole time you were marveling at the engineering. Something that was so fascinating to me was that the airport runway. I mean, there's no flat section, so they built one, and it's like the airport runway. It's underneath the highway, because they can't. There's like not a flat section on this island to land a plane, so they
They
have to
basically
like.
built an entire platform and raised it up with cement pillars. And so
Yeah.
part of this runway is like, on the ground, and then it juts out, and then there's cement pillars supporting it every 50 feet or so, and it's big enough for a giant jet engine airplane to land on, which is like absolutely insane. So it's like a
And you're
giant.
driving underneath it. It kind of freaked me out that there was planes landing above us when we
It's
were
yeah,
driving.
totally. It's like you could fit like an entire giant like stadium on top of that thing.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we're driving underneath it in a car.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
this landscape out there is absolutely wild. Like I'm still blown away by it.
Yeah, I cannot recommend this race enough. Not, you know, it's one of the most popular trail races out there, historically some of the most competitive. And it's extreme terrain, really, really beautiful. Unfortunately, we couldn't go to the high point of the course this year because of fires, but we still got high. We still got to like 6,500 feet, I think. And it was still insanely beautiful. And
It made me think of Towley from South Park.
why?
No, never mind.
No,
Dumb
now you have to
inside
tell
joke.
me.
Towley, like you want to get high, like this little
Oh,
towel in South Park is always trying to get high. And it's just like it's a it's a dumb South Park joke.
that's so
I don't know how
funny.
many of our viewers watch South Park or have, but yeah, it's well known. Towley is well
Yeah,
known.
Towley is. Yeah, so I did not want to really get any higher than that because that climb,
Yeah,
I honestly, that if I didn't puke, that would have been one of my biggest struggle sections, just because my feet started really hurting. So should we do like a play-by-play of the course? How do you think we should
yeah.
structure
I'm
this?
thinking you should go into like maybe what you did to prep for the race and like what the travel was like to get there, and then
Cool.
what it was like to be there, and then leading into the race, your mindset, all that jazz, and then doing the actual race and what that was
Okay,
like,
let's do it. Okay,
section
so
by
let's
section.
start with the training for the race. As if you listen to our last episode, I spent 2 weeks in Flagstaff, and I think that was crucial. Before that, I was here in Hawaii doing a lot of the same stuff. Moderate volume. I was running like 15 hours a week, 15 to 16, between 70 and 80 miles a week. Just a really awesome progression since Thailand, doing like 1 to 2 speed workouts a week, usually one VO2 workout, so like hill sprints, or like 3-minute hills, or a strength workout, so I do like some 8-minute hills, some 10-minute hills, and then one longer steady state workout. So so if you're not familiar, steady state is around our 2-hour effort, or our close to zone 3. So I was doing a lot of steady state, like in the middle of long runs, or my favorite workout I did like a 20-minute tempo, and then 5x3 minute hills, stuff like that. And then slowly progressing. The weekly volume didn't really change, but what would was the weekend volume. And I didn't really peak until I got to Flagstaff, where that was where I did a huge volume block, still while maintaining speed. I think the training in Flag went pretty freaking well. I got one little niggle after a hard workout that I did with my PT Cam, and it kind of didn't go away. I'm still dealing with it a little bit, but it didn't impact the race. I mean, maybe it did. Maybe I'll get into it, but I felt like I couldn't. I did feel like I had some biomechanical issues at the race that were really limiting, but I wasn't in pain, which was awesome.
What were those biomechanical issues?
Well, we can get into. I feel like that's a big deal, a big part of the race. So when I do the breakdown of the race, I'll talk about the biomechanical issues. But I think this camp was super important for a couple reasons. I think first, getting on terrain that is similar to Madeira. So I got to run a lot in the Grand Canyon, and both. My sports psychologist is actually the one that told me to go out to a camp first. So thumbs up. For just those listening without the video, is Zoom or Riverside gave me a thumbs up when I said that. But they're like, sports psychology, yes. But anyway, I just because it's really hard to gauge my fitness while I'm here in Hawaii and running with people who are also competing at a high level is important to know where you're at. And also it's important to just like get comfortable in a pack. So, and then also to get, again, terrain specific training. So like the Grand Canyon, yeah, I could not have gotten that here unless we went to the Big Island and I ran on like Mauna Kea access road. And even still, because descending 5,000 feet or like 6,000 feet in one go is such a unique stimulus. And like I can get 5,000 feet total in a run here, but doing it all at once is a different stress. And, I've been doing runs here in Hawaii with very similar stats, like 25 miles, 6,000 feet of vert here in Hawaii. But my first run in the Grand Canyon, just because I ran, that downhill comes all at once, I was so sore the next day. So that was super important, and that really got me ready for the long descents. And I think that's an important takeaway here. I think another important takeaway of this camp is that I, part of something that I love about living here in Hawaii is that ultra running doesn't consume every little part of our lives. It consumes me for sure, but I'm able, when I was in Boulder, it was everything. Everywhere I went was ultra running, everything I did, everyone that I hung out with. And I love here that I'm more disconnected from it. However, I think it's important to be in that bubble right before a competitive race. And I think that just getting me in that mindset, that performance mindset, being around like-minded people, being around people who are all going after the same goals, was super helpful. And then the other piece was just like gaining confidence. So like, I can still hang with these women that I used to be able to hang with around Western. And like after that, 2017, 2018, 2019, I did just like an easy run with my friend Abby Hall, and she and I used to train together a lot when we both lived in Boulder. And at over 7,000 feet in Flagstaff, we ran low 720s, and my heart rate was still in that zone 2, and we chatted the whole time and just like on an easy run, and that gave me a ton of confidence. And the workouts are always hard, and the needle moves slowly on fitness in the workouts, but where I see a big difference is are my easy runs sometimes, and at the ease of which they come. So, I was leaving Flagstaff pretty, more confident than I've been in a long time.
Yeah, that seemed like a really good experience for you to go up and down the Grand Canyon so much, and practice some steep terrain at high elevation.
Yeah.
And that's like sounds like pretty similar terrain too, because there's a lot of steps at Madeira, and you said there was a lot of steps in the Grand Canyon also.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
Like
there
steps
are
as in stairs. Like there's actually staircases.
well, both stairs and like the terrace steps, the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, it's all, like little things of wood and steps like that, and then the part in between the wood is hollowed out just from wear. And there was a lot of that on the at Madeira too. So, and just like, yeah, the steps, the you go 2,000 feet at once of just stairs.
Yeah.
And that was
So then from there, I met you in Arizona, and then we flew to Madeira, and that was like, it's a pretty long travel day. So I'm really happy that we're getting smarter and traveling like a week before the actual race, because you're pretty worked from just traveling that long for a few days after. We were like sleeping a lot.
Oh yeah, we got there. It might be like the most I've ever slept in my life. We got there on Sunday, and Sunday night we got 12 hours of sleep. I mean, not you. You woke up in the middle of the night. Monday night I got like 10. I basically got like 3 nights in a row of 10 to 12 hours of sleep. And then was sleeping 10 hours after that every night until the night of the race, which, I usually sleep 7 to 8, and I feel fine, but sleeping that much, I felt so good.
Yeah. And we took a red eye there, right? And
Yeah.
there's not really an option not to, because you're going east. I mean, when you go east, like, you're going against the sun. So you'll probably run into a red eye, which is just more challenging of a travel day. So, we got there, we took a bunch of vitamins, tried to staying healthy when your system is run down.
We ate raw garlic.
Yeah, raw garlic. What of the listeners has ever tried that? And does it work for you? Because we've been doing it, and it really works for us, I think. You you chew a piece of garlic and you eat it, but like, you also have to maybe have a chaser on hand and try not to breathe while you do it, and eat it pretty quick. Like, you don't want to.
Yeah, you gotta chew it like
don't
3
enjoy
times.
it. It's like it's powerful. Yeah.
I know, it burns. It burns like while you're swallowing it, and then in your stomach for like 10 minutes after. But I started this tradition in 2016 when I was teaching and I was around kids all the time. And I had a race. I was racing Rio de Lago, and felt like I was getting sick. And the Thursday night before, I was Googling things to do not to get sick, and raw garlic came up, and so I ate raw garlic. It was like, so I felt like I was sweating out raw garlic the next day at work, and it worked. I didn't get sick, and so I have been doing that religiously when I feel like I'm getting sick since then, and both of us felt like a little something coming on after.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't get sick.
Yeah, it really turned it around. And then, what else? Well, I guess when we show up, we're eating the local food, and there's some really good food there.
Yeah, we went for, when we first got there on Monday morning, we attempted a run, but we were both too tired. I was like, we got a mile and a half in. I was like, can we just walk back? And I was grateful for that. And then the next day I ran the first 10K of the course, and I was so grateful that I did that. And I felt great. I felt really strong. I had a fun run. I was like, immediately the first mile is on road, but it has 700 feet of climbing. So I was like, I think that was important for me to see. because I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to hammer. And then it goes right into like this tunnel. It's double track for a while, but then it goes right into this tunnel, and then right onto single track. And I knew that that was gonna Congo line really easily, and it was gonna be hard to pass people. So
Not just a tunnel, it's like a whole kilometer long tunnel, right? With
yeah,
no
it's a
lighting.
kilometer.
And
It's
it's
so
shorter
crazy.
than you are.
Yeah, there's sections that I'm like ducking, which I realize, I always realize how tall I am on these ultra start lines. Keely Henninger just got a golden ticket at Canyon's 100K, and she's like the only ultra runner that's taller than me, I think. I'm 5'10", I think she's 5'11" or 6 foot, and I literally was thinking about her in that tunnel because I was like, I think she's done this. What the hell did she do? But yeah, it's a tiny tunnel, and it's dark for 1 kilometer. So when I don't have to duck the whole time, but for some of it I do, and it's wet, it's dripping. So when I went in there just for the training run, it was so dark and it twisted. So at one point you can't see where you came out from, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it was so dark that my phone light wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, I remember you came out of that sounding pretty stressed. You were like, it kind of rattled you a little bit because when you first ran it, you were completely alone. And it's a long tunnel to be completely in the dark and without a solid light. So
Totally.
anyways.
And the other thing that happened is some construction guy saw me go in there. He turned out to be really nice, but the first thing he said to me in this dark tunnel where I couldn't see anything was he asked me, he was like, "You're running alone?" And, I was that as a woman, and he had a headlamp, so it turns out he was just guiding me through. But as a woman alone in a dark tunnel, already a little bit scared, a man asking if I was alone was with nobody presumably knowing where I was. I got freaked out for a second.
Kind of freaky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's good that you saw it so you could mentally prepare for it. And then you did a few other runs that week, but then the other run that you did on the course was the final 10K, right?
Yeah.
Was that helpful for you?
I think if I had been, it turned out to not be super helpful. Well, it did because I knew where I was and I was suffering a lot. So it made me not lose hope. The course was longer than advertised.
You're pretty infamous for getting lost somewhere on the course and like going.
Well, I didn't get lost at all this time, but
that's a good job. But like, it's good. I'm just saying, like, you knew where the course was, so that might have helped you.
Well, I gotta say, this course was like the best MART course that I've been on since, aside from like UTMB or CCC, which I could run without course markings at this point.
Cool.
But yeah, it was like every like 30 feet there was a marking. So I didn't have an issue at all. But yeah, I think it was helpful in the fact that like I was puking a lot. So I knew, because the course was like a couple miles longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be 54 miles, and it was around 56. I knew like, okay, I have a 10K to go here. And I think without that, because I was puking, it would have been mentally a lot harder. But, because I wasn't able to execute the way that I thought, my plan was to really rip on that section. I'm decent at the climbing and descending. I'm pretty good at just running fast on trails, and I was excited to open up there, and I just wasn't able to. So that's why I've been reliving that last 10K in my sleep.
Yeah, and so that was a really good week of like building up and getting ready, and I was like helping you every step of the way, gathering everything and trying to, preparing with you, doing the full on week long crew duties. So that was good. I feel like we prepared really well and slept a lot. especially you
And
did.
everything was all ready by Wednesday. I got to check in on Wednesday, which was awesome. I um, said no to going to the elite ceremony on Thursday just because I didn't want to. And I had to work. So Thursday I just did a bunch of coaching, but that was also a good excuse to not go.
It's good that you could relieve some stress like that.
Yeah.
And that really helps. But so then, leading into the race, you told me that you were like super nervous, like unreasonably nervous going into it.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone about that?
It was probably the most nervous that I'd been since 2018 UTMB. And 2018 UTMB was really nerve-wracking because first, it's so big. And second, there's just so much hype around it. And the whole week you're doing events and, it's all these questions about UTMB. It's all talking about it. Like, it's not, we just had a quiet couple days. But the reason I think I was so nervous is this was the first time that I felt like, oh, I can actually compete. I'm actually as fit as I was in 2018. And probably not I was like, the 2018 UTMB was the fittest I've ever been, for sure. But I felt ready. I felt really prepared. And I think that is a new box that I got to check. And I think, it's super easy when you're working on fitness and you're like, I know I'm not, you're lining up and you're like, I know I'm not where I want to be, but I just want to race hard. That is one thing. And then it's easy to hide behind that. But I was like, oh, I'm fit. I'm ready. I did a big training block. That part is taken care of. I have nothing to hide from. No, no niggles. I did have a little niggle, but it wasn't impacting. It like went away after, my first mile or so in all my runs.
Awesome.
So I wasn't worried about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
man, and so you're so nervous race morning, and then the bathroom line, there's 2 porta potties for whatever, 500 racers or something. And then the porta potty
stood in
line
line for 35 minutes.
Yeah, it took 35 minutes, and luckily you were able to get in there like 5 minutes before the start gun went off, so that was great.
So I was so nervous. Usually I can like wake up, force feed myself, and then kind of the nerves set in. But I couldn't even finish my oatmeal that morning. I was so nervous. It was super, super unusual. I couldn't force feed myself. And honestly, I had this realization moment where, and I don't want my athletes who listen to this to use this as an excuse, but I'm going to say this, that sometimes when my athletes are like, I'm so nervous, or like, I couldn't eat because I was so nervous, I discount it a little bit. And I realized a flaw in my coaching, like, okay, we need to strategize around that. Instead of like being like, you just need to force feed yourself, and that was the first time that I ever really
because it's legit. Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
That's valuable. So
and I did strategize around it. I couldn't eat my breakfast, so I instead had a carb drink. Something important to talk about, I think, here too, is in Flagstaff, I switched my entire nutrition strategy. I had been using Precision. Satisfy has a deal with Martin, so I was using Martin for a little while. And then Cam, who I was staying with in Flagstaff, gave me some Never Second stuff. And I talked to Vic, my dietitian, about it, and he was like, this stuff is the best. And with 2 weeks to go, before the race, I switched my entire nutrition strategy and was using Never Second. And I was using their carb mix, which carb mix has never worked for me, but this stuff was freaking amazing.
Yeah, you were crushing it with your nutrition.
Yeah,
and
up until
I feel
until I wasn't.
Yeah, well, I think that is because of your hydration, which we'll get into a little bit later, but that was the crux of the race for you. Even though, like, you didn't like lose too much time, but you did lose like probably 20 minutes because of that puking spree that you had.
I think
So,
more than that, 20 to 30.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was
So I was
some
gaining
hammer
on the
chicks.
downhills because
There were
I
some
was
like
gaining.
really hardcore hammer chicks on that race. They were like really there. You had some fierce competition, so it was good that you were able to keep second place for almost the entire race.
Yeah, I was terrified that I was going to lose it. But anyway, um, having that 90 or that 30 gram of carb mix, so I had two instead. I realized I couldn't eat my oatmeal, and then so I just had 2 scoops of that in 2 different bottles. So 60 grams of carbs and drink mix, plus a gel right before the start. So
Yeah. So how much were you eating per hour? Would you say?
90 grams. I had a
90,
and I executed until I saw you.
90 grams
I
of carbs. How many calories is that?
I have no idea.
Like 400, maybe.
Yeah, maybe around there. It's ever since things have switched to carbs per hour instead of calories, I literally don't pay attention to the calories at all.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so 30 grams of carbs an hour. Or no, 90. All with never second stuff. So 2 gels and 1 scoop of drink mix an hour. And around 750 milliliters of water. What I realized also that probably contributed to the puking was a part of my nutrition plan and that it was just like loose, like as needed, but I needed to do this and I didn't realize it, was to chug water, plain water at the aid stations. And I didn't do that because I was just focused on getting in and out as fast as possible. So that also is probably contributed to the puking at the end. But
Yeah, and we'll tell everyone what else contributed was that you were eating salt pills
yeah,
because you're concerned about that with your hydration, but I think you were sort of like eating too many of them, so it was actually dehydrating you.
yeah. Well, I got hyponatremia, or what was diagnosed with as hyponatremia in New Zealand at Tarawera, and because of that, I fainted. I was puking and I fainted, and that was so scary. I hardly remember it. And I think I just have like a knee-jerk reaction now when something is wrong to take salt. And I don't think I need that much salt. I think I know from salt tests that I'm below average. But I got nauseous. I started taking salt, and then that contributed to the feedback loop, I think, of nausea. And then because I was nauseous, I wasn't drinking water. What I should have done is just sucked it up and chugged a flask of water. And I probably would have felt better.
Yeah.
God, it kills me just thinking about that.
Well,
That last section was my jam.
yeah, I mean, it's really also reassuring that, like, it makes sense that you went into this race so nervous because like you said, you didn't have anything to hide behind. You're fit and healthy. You're on the upswing for your fitness and this block of training that you've been on. And, there's not any reason why you can't perform. So now it's like the test is real and, you actually performed the way you were hoping to, which is awesome. And, this is also reassuring that we're like zeroing in on this next thing, which is, why do you puke? And that, you have some hydration issues that we still have to figure out, which we're going to figure those out. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. And I think that we found out some really solid info. And what we really have to do is replace what you lose, which is a specific ratio of water and salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just putting in too much salt. And then again, I got nauseous, and then so I completely just stopped drinking the water. Yeah. So should we break it down a little bit more? We did the first 10K, went through the tunnel, got on the single track. I mean, the first 10K was like easy breezy. It was like pretty open after the single track. So first place was in sight pretty much the whole time until 20K, unless we went around a corner or something. Tons of stairs. You know, it's so funny. We ascent in the first 10K ascend. It's a small climb, like 1,500 feet. Run through the tunnel, and then on this single track for a little while, and then we descend like 2,500 feet in stairs. So it's pretty crazy. Just like, you know, not just like stairs like the Grand Canyon, but like a staircase.
Steep
yeah,
stairs too.
Super steep.
Not ADA accessible. We're realizing that nothing on Madeira is ADA accessible.
No, crazy. Everybody uses stairs. And then it's another like 4 miles on road, but uphill. So it's like in 4 miles, you gain about 700 feet. Could still see first. And then around the 20K mark, or maybe less, about 11 miles, it turns onto the super steep trail. And where I was running it, but she turned a corner on the steep climb, and I was like starting it, and then I never saw her again. But I was feeling really good. I was having fun competing with the men. You know, it's early, so I'm just like running really steady, and all these men are, you know, I pass them and they just like kill themselves to pass me back. And they're making noises, you know, they're like, you know, making so much noise, and I'm just going the same pace the entire time, the same output, and they just, every time they like sprint ahead of me and then like die for a little while. And this happens in every race in the first half. And it's pretty fun because you just know, yeah, I'm like, I'll see you soon. And it's literally in minutes usually, but this goes on for a long time, and I'm having a blast. I know, like in the beginning, I'm running really, really well. I have some biomechanical stuff, like my 2 things were really bugging me. First, my calves. And I've had this issue chronically for years and years and years, where it feels like on the uphill, when I'm running, only my calves are working sometimes. And it's like one of those things where some days it's fine, some days it's not. It was not fine this day, and it really slowed me down on some of the climbs and made me lose just efficiency, because when it just feels like there's a Charlie horse in my calves. And I know it's because I'm not using my glute and hamstrings as much as I should be. And what reinforced that is I was also having a lot of low back pain on the climbs, which I remember when this used to be just like an occurrence that would happen all of the time. But I noticed when it used to happen that when my low back was bad, my calves would do it. So I think it's nerve or something, but it felt really limiting. I would not be breathing hard, and yet my calves specifically my calves was really the limiter. I can work through the low back pain a little bit better, but would just be so locked up, and that was frustrating.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, when I go upstairs, I typically feel like I notice it most in my quads, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like 80% calf.
Depending on the day, I feel it in my lower back, but I don't know. Maybe that's just the fact that I'm 31 now. So
yeah, I think it's mostly for me like a nerve thing, and I think it is for you too, because you slammed your back recently surfing, and I think that happens, and there's like a nerve line that goes down into your calf. Yeah. But I don't know, I'm working my PT Cam. I haven't talked to him about it yet because he is crewing Cocodona right now, and also I've just like been kind of removed since we've been traveling home. And then I have another coach with the balanced runner, Paul. I always forget his last name, but we can link it in the show notes. And I'm doing he's been helping with some of my form stuff, and so we have a call next week to talk about it. But that was, I definitely had to work with that. And I think frustrated was the wrong word. I was having a lot of fun racing. it was too early to feel actually frustrated. And I dealt with it, but I think it was an acknowledgement of something that I needed to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, every single time I saw you at the aid stations, you were pretty on. You weren't ever like,
Yeah.
you didn't ever seem like you had any major lows, which sometimes you do. So I'm happy
Yeah.
that you were keeping it together this time.
90 grams of carbs. That's why. I swear to God.
Just on a constant sugar high the whole time.
Yeah.
That's what. That's a real
Yeah.
reason why you love ultra running is just because you get to eat so much sugar in one day.
Yeah, I wish I loved that part of it. I like sugar outside of running. The more I run, the less I want sugar, which is messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I got in the 90 until I didn't, and then my major low was the last little bit, and it was low. I mean, I guess I've been lower. I'd say in Thailand, I briefly got lower, but I was able to recover. I just wasn't able to recover here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after the first 20K, I see you, and the next time I see you is like up and over the high point of the course. And again, I'm moving really well. It's so muddy. Like often when I'm stepping, the mud goes up to my like mid shin. It's like wet, but super wet and also super steep. So I think that is the only section where it would have been helpful for me to have poles just for stability. I was definitely using my hands a lot there just because it's so steep and so muddy that I have to like pull my leg out. And so that was slow, but I was moving well. I was passing people there, which was awesome. I was feeling good. I started having some foot pain up the climb, which turned out to not be a big deal. It went away anytime I descended. The Prodigio Pros have like that sock thing where it's like a built-in gaiter, but it's super tight. And I think I just have I have like this really high bone on my foot. And so having that while climbing for so long, I think was just cutting off the circulation in my foot. Or maybe my foot was bruised because it's still, like I definitely still notice my forefoot hurting today. So, on both feet. Just when I had some like PT today where I was jumping and I was like, oh, I shouldn't probably do that. I still feel that. But, yeah, I got to the top of the climb. It's so steep. This was a long ass climb. But got to the top and it's like all the really iconic photos you see of Madeira with like the stone walkway where it's like, two cliffs on each side. And, yeah, I start running and I'm like, oh, I feel pretty good. Then it starts descending and this descent is so steep and so technical. And that was probably my favorite part of the course, just because I was running it really well.
That's the middle of the course?
That was, about the middle. So that's after the high point, descending down the
Oh, I thought that section was towards the end, but that makes sense.
Well,
So,
there was a really technical part there too, but I just wasn't feeling great. So, but I was noticing the technical downhills have been my strength in the past. And when my hip was really hurting and I didn't feel stable on the trails because it was my glute med, a major stabilizer that was torn. I just have gotten worse at downhills, and it's taken a lot of time to build confidence back there. And I didn't even know I was running downhills well, but the men who were running the 85K and that were around me, that is where I started to put time on them. And I found out later from talking to my coach, John, that I was putting time on the first woman on the downhills too. Which was, that's probably like a highlight of this race for me, is just realizing that is a strength of mine. And something that John said after we chatted in our post-race debrief was like, we got to work your skills. We can only gain so much in your weaknesses, but we can gain a lot working on your strengths. So that's something that I'm really excited to do, is just like continue refining my downhill running, because it's fun, and it was so fun to feel like I was dancing over a super technical trail.
That's awesome.
For a
Yeah,
5,000-foot descent.
you haven't felt like that in so many years. Like, and now you're
I
finally
know.
back at it, just ripping down trails. I remember it was such a bummer for you when you couldn't do that, and
I
now
know
you're doing
we'd
it.
get. I feel bad for you. We'd get in fights about it. Well, not fights. You were so amazing about it, but
Kat was pissed.
well, it was like a piece of my
Watch me
heart.
ripping down the trail, and then you were like, you left me. And it was like, well, I was like right in front of you. I just was going way faster than you down this trail. But it would tear you up because you used to be able to do that, and then you couldn't for a while.
Yeah, and not only couldn't do it, I felt weird and awkward trying, but it also was painful. Like the downhills were the most painful. Uphills didn't hurt so much, but when I was running downhill, like every single step really hurt, and it just completely took the fun out of it. And to see you dancing down a technical trail so effortlessly, it just like broke my heart. And I'm sorry that I gave you
I'm
so much
sorry that I
flack
broke
about
your
it.
heart.
Well, I'm back now, and it honestly,
You're back now, and now I'll never see you again. You're just like way faster than I'll ever be on any terrain.
I think not
So,
in the downhills. I think the downhills.
yeah,
You're
yeah. Give it 1 week. You'll be back.
Um,
Anyways, so the last third of this race, tell us a little bit more about that last little part. Like, when did you start feeling like you're going downhill, and like, what was the first signs of that?
yeah. So on that last climb, I felt okay at first, and then I saw you. I was super happy. But even when I saw you, you came to spectate about halfway up the climb. I was feeling nauseous. I started feeling nauseous right around the time I saw you. And I was trying, and like, and I, nausea comes and goes during races no matter what, but that it like, I was able to correct throughout the race, so it was fine. But it stuck around that whole climb, and I was trying to troubleshoot. And I started eating more salt because I noticed my hands were really swollen. And sometimes when my hands are swollen, I need salt, and I just had like a flashback of Tarawera where I fainted, and my first sign there was swollen hands, and I was like, okay, salt. And that didn't work. I kept getting more and more nauseous, and honestly, that whole last section is fast. A lot of that climb is on road. It's not muddy. I wish, and then it's like a really nice single track up. There's like a couple technical parts, but it's pretty runnable, And I was just trying to troubleshoot the nausea, and I got to you, and I had the plan there to switch to plain water. I made this plan with Vic, and just do 3 gels an hour instead of doing carb drink and 2 gels an hour. And I left that aid station. I had some water, started to feel a little bit better at first, and then it just took a major downfall.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you start to go downhill out of fear of the hyponatremia, you start eating salt. And so like, and the hyponatremia, there was so many other factors that went into that in New Zealand, like, and it's not like a sure thing that's exactly what it was that caused you to pass out. So like, I think it's good that we reevaluate that all of your hydration, and definitely don't like pound salt just because you think it might possibly make you feel better.
Yeah.
But, it is challenging when you're on a nosedive like that, trying to figure out how to pull it back up in game time.
It's so challenging. I think I need to race again. And I know before Speedgoat, my next race is Speedgoat 50K, which even though, I was talking to my coach, and he's like, remember, I want you to compete at Speed Goat and run hard, but remember, we're not going to be peaking for that. I still want to do well. You know, I'm just going to like race my little heart out. And, but I want to be more dialed for Speed Goat. And so I want to do one practice race, I think in June. I'm going to ask Finn from Single Track, maybe if I can have an entry into Twisted Fork. It's a 40 miler. And first I got to ask permission. But
where is that one?
That's in Utah. So it's still
Twisted Fork 50 miler. That's
40 miles.
That's the inaugural race, right? There's a 40 miler and an 80 miler, you said?
No, and 18 or 19. So it's like a 60K and a 30K and a 15K.
Yeah, Finn's a good dude. I hope that's becomes a successful race because he's got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think, you know, the next test you have, but you shouldn't get so excited that you like just have to race every weekend.
No.
That's really challenging.
I mainly just I love the training process. Something that was super satisfying about this build was that I didn't race from Thailand to here. And so I had a super long build. And I like being able to do that without any training interruptions, because oftentimes racing is a training interruption. And so I would personally, I think racing is really, I think I need to race again. I think I do need to race again before Speed Goat to just rip the Band-Aid off just once, not a bunch of times. I'm not going to be a serial racer, but to rip the Band-Aid off again, you know, just to be like, exposure is really helpful. I think it'll help with the nerves. And then nutrition. You know, 40 miles is enough that I will know if I am nailing my nutrition. You know, the nutrition started to go for me before 40. Like when I saw you, that was like mile 38 or something, mile 40. So when it's, you know, it was going. So that's enough, long enough where I can figure it out.
Yeah. Cool. Right on. And then, so what point are we at in the story? You were, you know, basically now is when you're puking. And
yeah.
How many times did you puke?
5 times. Yeah.
Gross.
And 3 of them was in the last 10K, and one of them I could see the finish line. I'm like half a mile from the finish.
Did you puke on any of your opponents?
No, but my last one, I gotta say, like, in the...
Could you get disqualified for that if you're, like, intentionally puking on people?
I intentionally do it, probably.
What if
That'd be a huge dick move.
That'd be so nasty.
But anyway, there was a 20K or a 30K, a shorter distance race. I think it was 30K. And it's like it all converges on the last 10K of the course, and I'm puking, like we can see the finish line, and this group of 20Kers, 30Kers just come around me and are all patting my back, and assuring me that the finish line is close. I wonder if they thought that I was in the 30K and I just went too hard. But yeah, they were like, "You were so close to the finish. Keep going." And you know, when I puke, it's like not just, some people just like get it out fast, but it comes from the depths for me. It's like really loud and violent. You know, when I was a kid, I used to...
It sounds pretty aggressive.
I don't know why.
When I was a kid,
I used to like pop blood vessels in my eyes anytime I puke.
I always tell Kat, like, you do everything like extra hard.
No.
You know, it's you never go easy. It's always like popping blood vessel hard. You know, it's 5 out of 10 or 5 out of 5. You know, 10 out of 10. So, anyways, you're out there heaving, just loudly projectiling, not on people, but on the side of the trail.
On the side, yeah.
And and then but you keep on going. So is it hard for you to like get back up and keep running after each?
Well, for like 3 to 5 minutes immediately after I puke, like
Oh,
a
wow.
little layer of sweat on me, and so the air feels really cool when it, when it,
Like sweet relief.
yeah, it is. It is like, and I feel like euphoric for a couple minutes after. I'm like,
Damn, that's
thank
crazy.
God. And then it's just like a cycle.
And then it gets
I
worse and
know.
worse, and then you puke, and then it gets better and better.
Yeah, and then
Huh.
it gets better immediately, and then it's a slow decline, and then I puke.
If there's any doctors out there, like, does that sound like some sort of salt poisoning or like salt OD? Because it sounds like if you drink seawater, like that would happen to you. You
I
know,
know.
it's just like
You
too
brought
much
up
salt.
Alone. You were like, you know, in Alone, the show.
Oh yeah,
This
one of the
woman drinks
ladies
seawater.
she ate a bunch of salt. She like made this stew, which was mostly just salt water, and she puked. So
That's what got through to me, you know, because I was denying this too much salt thing. And then you said that, and I was like, "Ah, you might be
yep,
right."
husband's almost always right.
Are you going to sing it?
I'm just joking. No,
I'm,
no.
You're not going to sing it? I'm
No.
right. Okay.
Yeah, you
Not
know,
sure
it's always fun to be
I would
right.
do it. Yeah.
I know you would.
But
So, anyways, you hustle down the hill. I see you. I'm taking photos of you. You look like a zombie, but you're still in second place, and I was stoked to see that. First place, she was like keeping her speed like the whole race. She did a really amazing race.
yeah.
I'm curious how that relates to her other races, but you know, going into this race, you weren't looking at any of your competitors. You didn't really want to be focused on that. You just wanted to be focused on yourself, which I think is like pretty admirable. Because I would probably look at all the other people that I'd be racing and be like, all right, who's this person? If I had a shot at the top five, the top three podium, I would probably be obsessing. So, you know, it's good that you didn't even go there because I
Well,
feel like
here's
that
the
could
thing.
easily
Is you
take
gotta
you over.
obsess. You have to just obsess about the things that you can control. You can't obsess about the things that you can't control. And that I used to obsess a lot about things that I couldn't control, and it would like literally break me, and it's exhausting. But I was obsessive. I was obsessive this block about things that I could control. I made my sister wear a mask on the plane to come see me, which she wasn't very happy about, but she did it. She Venmo requested me for the mask. So I'll definitely eat that to not get sick. I was eating super, super well. This is like probably the most I've ever eaten outside of running, both in running and outside of running. I've just like basically I've been obsessive, and I think that is the key. And I think that's also why I was so nervous. It's because I did do everything that I possibly could.
Yeah, you've been investing. At one point, Kat told me, yeah, I just need to spend as much as I possibly can on food because that seems like it's working. I was like, oh, awesome, babe. Like, how much are you spending every day on food? Recalculated, it's like what, like $20 an hour on gels or something. It's,
Yeah, well, that
pretty
was
aggressive.
for running food. I was eating.
Yeah.
I was not for everyday life food. I wasn't
that was-
spending. I was
that
eating a
was-
lot of rice and beans outside of that,
Yeah.
which is Vic
Definitely.
approved. So it's a good healthy meal, and it's
Vic
$2.
approved.
Yeah,
Wow,
rice
nice.
and beans. As long as I have a protein shake before bed.
Yeah, so congrats. You came in second, and then you were whooped after that. And you passed the finish line, and you definitely seemed like you were hurting. So we sat in the car for a little bit after that. And how did it feel when you crossed the finish line? Did you feel like relief?
Yeah, you know, to be completely honest, I was a little bit disappointed that I had spent so long puking again. This has just felt like such a big issue. It's a theme, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it being a theme. I'm sick of having GI issues, and I really feel, yeah, and I think that's why I've been dreaming about that last little bit so much. It's because I know I could have done better, and it's so miserable to be puking for that long. And so I think I wasn't feeling, I think I was like kind of pissed at myself. I think when I was relieved was after I puked it back at the Airbnb and I felt better. That's when I felt relieved and I could still be happy about it. I was like, okay, mission accomplished. That's when I felt like mission accomplished. But when I was in it, it was like it happened so much. I was like kind of sad. And I still am a little bit sad, but now I'm on like the let's fix it mindset.
Yeah, that's a pretty, there's always a mood swing after a race, right? Like you always like cross the finish line and then it's like either super high highs or you're like having a tough time. But, all that stimulus, you kind of come out of that like, and you have to hit some sort of low afterwards. That's just like a natural cycle for your body. But if you had an athlete that told you, I crossed the finish line, I felt kind of let down because I was puking a lot, even though I did pretty well. Like, what would you tell them?
I'd say that it's okay to feel that way. I'd say like celebrate the good, celebrate that like what you just did and what you just went through. Don't dwell. A past me, if something like this had happened, I would have been like depressed, even though I got second, just the fact like John thinks I could have run 45 minutes faster, and hearing that, a part of me is like, woo, and then a part of you is like, fuck. And so I would tell an athlete, don't dwell, don't throw yourself a pity party. It's okay to be disappointed. Then let's pivot. Then let's fix it. You got to turn that disappointment into action. And it only works if you turn it into action. And here I am turning it into action. I'm actually like, this morning I ran 6 miles, super easy. My heart rate was 135. And I ate a gel on my run today, even though I had a full breakfast, just because I want to keep exposing my stomach to the gel. And that is action.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah.
Action. Got to keep the action. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Congrats. I'm really proud of you. You've done a really amazing job on this one. And, every time we go on one of these trips, I'm always thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and that. I'm going to go like exploring. And, I did get to go on like a couple little exploration runs, but, I'm also like, so like nervous for you. I'm just thinking about what can I do to make sure that you're successful and, try to make sure that everything goes smoothly, even though it's, it's more in your hands than mine. But I was also thinking as hard as I could about every little thing I could do. So I'm happy, it was pretty seamless. And, I think that we learned a lot. There's like a lot of knowledge that we gained from this.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm like, I've been so fired up this week. I've been so fired up to race and to continue racing and to continue to get better. And I think that is affirming, during my low, when I was puking, I was like, why the fuck am I still doing this? What? This hurts so bad. This is so hard. And I'm puking and I feel nauseous and I'm going slow and I'm not even executing the way I want to. Why is it worth it? But like, how I feel today, inspired to keep going, that's why it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's worth it. You got to keep it going. So congrats. And
thanks.
What else do you have to say for our listeners?
Thanks for listening. Keep listening, please. The next race that I'm doing is maybe something in June, TBD, and then Speed Goat. So, but I'm excited to, in July. And then next week I'm going to Satisfy
I'm doing a different
Camp.
Speed Goat.
Yeah, you're doing the 28K. Yeah, and I'm going to Satisfy Camp. But Hey, my Costco delivery is here, so I gotta run. She's called me like 4 times in the last couple minutes, even though I gave her directions. And our housemate was gonna help me with it, but I think I gotta go get it.
All right, so long. Good
So
talking.
long. Yeah, wait, don't forget to comment if you like the podcast. Please like it. Subscribe. Do you hear that? That's Costco. Do you hear the dogs barking?
Yeah, go get that Costco. Dogs
Yeah.
are going crazy.
Yeah. If
All
you
right.
like the podcast, please tell us. Thank you. Have a good day.